Afternoon, everybody. What a pleasure. My name is Victor Johnson. I'm with Prosperity Bank. I have the esteemed pleasure to have the Dr. Dennis Kimbro with us today. He has participated or is willing to participate with us in our quarterly conversation. These are conversations that we will have every quarter here in the Texas area, from Dallas to Austin, all the way down to Houston, and hopefully back up here to Dallas, where we will have the community, we will have community leaders, students, we will have bank executives, families, all learning from the great Dr. Dennis Kimbro. And he is an educator, New York Times bestseller, of course, author, expert on leadership, wealth, and success. How you doing today, brother, Dr. Dennis Kimbro?
Man, thank you for that introduction, Victor. You are too much, man. I am looking forward to this because this is critically important, particularly at this time, this day and age. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to throw a few questions at you, and obviously we'll get your expertise from each one. And the first question is, so Prosperity Bank, we have our community outreach team, which is the team you've been working with to organize these events. And Prosperity Bank, our focus is increasing Black home ownership in Texas. What barriers do you still believe are out there, or what strategies would you suggest to help us educate on the value of home ownership as it relates to building wealth?
Well, Victor, there are a number of barriers out there, and but the good news is that they're all can be overcome. It's doable once you set a strategy. Some of them are systemic, and some of them we just got to deconstruct. But I'm not here to talk about those particular issues that occurred in the past. We're about one thing and one thing only, and that's home ownership, particularly in the Black community. But when you look at the data, 54% of African Americans have either poor credit or no credit. In terms of savings, in terms of down payment, in terms of the number, in terms of inventory of homes out there. Yes, we have a number of barriers. And when we talk about inventory of homes, we have yet to get back to the number that we had prior to the 2008, 2009 recession. And tantamount to that are the number of affordable homes that are available. So yes, there are a number of barriers out there, but we know what we were getting into when W.B. Du Bois, Black America's most prolific scholar, when he said years ago, he said, to be a poor man is hard, but to be a poor race in a land full of dollars, well, that's the very bottom of hardship. So what must we do? Well, we got to change our mindset, and we got to be a participant in our own rescue. And how do we be a participant in our own rescue? We begin to talk and speak in the language of money, and that begins with financial literacy. You know, prosperity begins in the mind, but ends in the purse. And once we begin to speak that language, and once we begin to set in motion, we can overcome any of these barriers.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. As a bank, you feel like our job is just to continue to get out there and doing that financial literacy to help our community get to that home ownership aspect, it sounds like.
Oh, without a doubt. And that's part of being a banker, or being in the financial institution, particularly in this day and age. There's only two things you want to do. Number one, you want to meet the customer wherever he or she is. And number two, you want to close the gap. And how in the world are you going to close the gap? By adding value. When you look in Black America right now, 70% of Black neighborhoods don't even have a banking branch in their neighborhood. And when you speak of your community bank is going to be in two places. It's either going to be in the neighborhood of your customer, or it's going to be in the neighborhood in those urban centers. So wherever your customer is, and you got to be able to tell me, as someone in the financial industry, you got to be able to tell me anything and everything about your customer. I want the age, I want the race, I want the sex, I want the income of your customer. That's the only way that you're going to be able to add value. And as a member of the financial service community, you got to think digital, and then you got to think of not only adding value, but actualizing your customer. And how do you actualize your customer as someone in the financial service industry? The greatest tool you have today is technology and software. And you got to be able to extend that technology and software onto your customer wherever he or she is.
Excellent point. Absolutely. This is good. Now, I know you work in HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, and you are a professor at an HBCU. You want to shout out your HBCU, sir?
Clark Atlanta University School of Business, where I've been on board since 1992. When I came on board, I only taught at the MBA level. I taught entrepreneurship, executive leadership, and then I had to finish a book. And when I came back in 2000, 2001, I taught both undergraduates and graduate students. And that's what I do now. And I stand every Tuesday and Thursday, I stand before Generation Z. And what do we know about Generation Z, unlike all the generations that have occurred before? Here I am as a baby boomer, and I tell my students I will always be the oldest voice in the room. But it's with true nobility, Victor, we can learn from each other. And what have I learned from Generation Z? Well, number one, they are completely mobile. They are not only tech savvy, they are tech dependent. Number two, they think sustainability. So when you come up with an idea, when you come up with a better strategy, they want to know, will this strategy that I'm using, can I use 5 years from now? Can I use 10 years from now? Can I use 15 years from now? Number three, they don't want to make the same financial mistakes of their forebears, of their parents. Particularly when you're looking at HBCUs. What do we know about HBCUs? Right now, there are 109 HBCUs. Of those 109, they can be found in 19 different states. You take the aggregate number, about 335,000 students. When you look at the numbers today, about 40% are first generation. Of those first generation students, they come from households in which their parents not only can't give them a dime towards their education, but many of them don't even know what's taking place with the students because those students, their children are, taking steps in an area that they've never taken steps before. So this is new times for us. But the bottom line is, of those, 109 HBCUs, they produce all of our judges. They produce all of our doctors. They produce all of our engineers. They produce all of our dentists. They produce the majority of our school teachers. So they produce our Black middle class. And as someone in the financial service industry, we got to serve this particular community. And what I'm telling you, Victor, is not new. I mean, McKinsey, has shared this information with you. Not only McKinsey and Company, but Deloitte. Not only Deloitte, but Boston Consulting Group. That this is a critical time, not only for this country, but also, in terms of Black America and people of color.
Wow. Absolutely fabulous. Now, we know education is critical and it's a foundation for that ability to grow some wealth. What additional focal points should resonate with our young people? I mean, you mentioned the technology, but what are some additional focal points that really should resonate with our young people?
Well, as I briefly mentioned, this Generation Z, is all about one thing and one thing only, and that's chasing the bag. But I try to get the point over to my students. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur. I don't care if you're a corporate climber. You got to think entrepreneurially. And as an individual, you may not own a business, but you got to think like the business. So how are you going to scale your income? Look for those areas in which you can, and again, I keep going back to financial services. Everybody at Prosperity Bank, particularly in the loan department, are skilled in arbitrage. Well, what is arbitrage? It's minimizing risk and optimizing income. And that's all my students need to know when it comes to their money. How are you going to minimize the risk? It's not about how much money you earn. It's about how much money you keep. And the goal of money is to, to realize the shared value. I tell my students, don't make money your goal. Make the wise, productive use of money your goal. So any amount of money can be spent, but how are you going to optimize it? Think scale. And the number one key to thinking scale is to know your numbers. Know your numbers. So how much money do you earn on a monthly basis? And what do you do with your money? I guess Black America is probably the greatest example that you could use, Victor. Last year, Black America spent $1.7 trillion. 2024, $1.7 trillion. If we just saved one penny or a dime of the $1.7 trillion, you're either talking 1.7 billion or 17 billion, depending upon, your savings. So it's not how much money you earn, it's how much money you keep, and begin to think like a business.
Wow. Yeah, profound statement. You mentioned it's not about how much money you earn, it's about how much you keep. So what you're not keeping in many times is debt, right? So we know there's tons of student loan debt, in general debt, right? Many of us have debt or have overcome debt. And that's a big part of being able to manage that is a big part of building wealth, I would assume. What are your recommendations for graduates or for those that are going straight into trades or maybe into cybersecurity fields to help them get a good start so that they don't end up, carrying all this debt further into their lives and ultimately slowing down that wealth building?
Okay. Well, I tell them the number one source of their income will probably be a job. Yes, you might have a side hustle. Yes, you might be thinking of an entrepreneurial endeavor. But that income that you have coming in the 15th and 30th of every month or twice a month or whatever, that is your number one source of income, and take care of it. So the bottom line is, how are you going to take care of it? You're going to maximize it. The path that I place my students on is first job. And then from first job, you don't go to second job, you go to better job. And then after better job, you don't go to third job, you go to career. And then you manage it as if you're an unpaid consultant on somebody's team. And how do you manage it? We're going to get into optimizing your wealth and your income in a second, but you got to take care of this first. Number one is placement. I tell my students, get a sheet of paper, draw 3 columns of that sheet of paper. In the first column, write all your skills. Write all the skills that you have mastered over the course of your life. When you were in kindergarten, and you received a certificate and you brought that certificate home and you show your parents and they scotch taped it to the refrigerator. Why were you praised? Why were you given a pat on the back by your elementary school teacher? So what are the skills that you have mastered? List them all in the first column. The second column, what are you passionate about? If no one ever paid you a dime, if no one ever gave you financial reward for your efforts, what would you be praised for? What are you passionate about? What would you do for free? Because when you're doing what do it for free, you're probably doing it because you love it. And if you do it because you love it, you'll never work a day in your life. And then the third column, list all those companies, list all those organizations, list all those industries that could benefit from an individual who has your skill set and your level of passion. And when you do that, you never have to worry about income and you never have to worry about employment. Now, here comes the money angle. Number one, 401k. That is free money. Max out your 401k. Now, Victor, what does this have to do with home ownership? Because the majority of African Americans who are working today, and Black America, this isn't just innate to you. There are some middle to low income folks out there of all different colors and genders who fit in the same category that don't work in a position with a 401k. So what do you do? When you look at this sector of the demographic, without a 401k and without savings, this is where home ownership is important. Because what does home ownership do, Victor? It forces you to save.
Yes.
And how in the world is it forcing you to save? I'm probably the best example right now. Yes, I got mutual funds, and yes, I got a pension plan and a few other areas, a few other investments. But me and my wife bought this house that we live right now in 1984. We bought it for $106,000. Our monthly mortgage was what, $650. Now You try to buy this same house with an appraised value of $323,000, and with the market rate right now, I mean, that's going to, that's going to be almost close to $1,900 a month in terms of mortgage. Well, what did we do? Well, we didn't even think about it. We just paid the mortgage until we paid it off. But now that has forced us to save, and that is, that is a value add. That is, what we call capital gains and the like. So buying a home forces you to save, even for those of you who have no monthly savings plan, who have no emergency savings plan, and who have no 401k.
Thank you for that response. And actually, before I go to the last question, I want to piggyback on that one because you mentioned a valuable point. You bought your house for $106,000 40 plus years ago. Now it's worth well over $300,000. It's a nice bit of equity there. What do you recommend for specifically Black Americans that are in a similar situation where they have built up a nice nest egg of equity in their homes? Should they sit on it now that they paid off, celebrate? Should they?
Well, Vic, they got opportunity. Go to school and make sure you take microeconomics, and you will hear the theory of opportunity. And what do we know about opportunity? Two things that opportunity loves time, and opportunity loves cash. So if you got the time right now and you got the cash, take advantage of all the opportunities out there. But the bottom line, you got to make your money grow. As I say in my fifth book, The Wealth Choice, I found 7 different laws of wealth that millionaires, particularly Black millionaires, live and abide by. And the 7th law is make your money grow. Every dollar bill that you earn, give it a job, give it a task, because that dollar bill is the best employee in the world. It never takes a sick day. It never takes a vacation day. It will work 24/7 for you. And when you begin to do that, Victor, that's how you create wealth. And how you create wealth? Wealth is created while you sleep. Wealth is created while you sleep. And your number one goal, leave a legacy, is called generational wealth. I mentioned the fact that me and my wife, we paid our mortgage off. I am the first Black male in my extended family who was ever to do that. My father couldn't do that. My father-in-law couldn't do that. Both of them transitioned before that mortgage was up. My brother couldn't do that. My brother-in-laws couldn't do that. And none of my uncles could do that. So I am blessed. And why do I share that? Because now I got to be a good steward of that blessing. And how in the world am I going to be a good steward of that? Number one, and I'm passing this on to all the folks out there in cyberspace who are listening to this. Number one, retire all debt. You won't be financially free until you retire all debt. Number two, make your money grow. Make your money work for you. And I don't care if it's ETFs. I don't care if it's in real estate. I don't care if it's money market mutual funds. But give every dollar bill a personal assignment. Number three, be an extended source of your blessing. I don't care if you join in philanthropic ideas or organizations, but bless somebody, be a blessing to others, what you have been blessed to do. And when you do that, that will place you on the fast track. Again, it's not how much money you earn, it's what you do with your wealth that counts.
For sure. And you pretty much have answered this last question, but I'm going to still deliver it anyway because I know how your mind works. So starting out, a lot of these careers, such as engineers, physicians, lawyers, a lot of the tech jobs now, they're earning well over 6 figures out the gate. We're talking about folks in their early 20s with a good salary already out the gate. But I would love to hear your recommendation for how they can manage that career path if they're already earning, they're already in a higher earning position.
That's a great question, Victor. And when you mention earning 6 figures, you got to know exactly where you are. I have collected so much data on Black millionaires, and I found various milestones in their behavior. And when you mentioned six figures, one of the milestones, when I asked this question, and I asked these Black millionaires 118 questions, I said, what age were you when you crossed the six-figure barrier? 99.9% of the time, Victor, it came by age 30. So if you're talking doctors and lawyers and engineers who are earning six figures, you are certainly on the path to millionaireship, whether you know it or not. But the bottom line is that take on all the behaviors of success and then pass on those behaviors to others. What I found out is that life, this wealth creating journey, revolves around the four different sets. Number one, mindset. The greatest gift that you ever been given in your life is the ability to change your mind. Number two, soul set. What I mean by soul set, what do these millionaires have in common? Number one, as soon as they get up in the morning, they begin to get their mind right. They give thanks, their gratitude for their station in life. Health set, take care of yourself. I don't care. Exercise. Take a spiritual and digital detox. In other words, before you log on to social media, begin to get your mind right. And last but not least, soul set. I go back to that interview, that article that I read about Nelson Mandela when he was taking his final breath, and this young journalist wanted that last interview with him. And he asked Mr. Mandela, what is the purpose of life? And Mandela said, the only way that I could answer that question is to ask you two questions. He said, question number one, have you moved from fear to fearless? And number two, have you closed the gap? Have you closed the gap between your promise and your performance? That's all we have to do in life. That's all we have to do in life, Victor. And I hope that answered your question.
100%, sir. Listen, we appreciate your time. We're excited about you coming into the Texas state, bringing this wealth of knowledge, this experience, and we can't wait to have you, sir. Thank you so much for your time today. God bless you.
Thank you, Victor. Bye-bye.